I would like to talk a little bit about what is called RDF schema. So that after you model or you have this concept in mind when you are modeling your RDF assignment 1. Okay, the RDF model of assignment 1. Because later on, we also need to, based on that, your assignment 1, then model RDF schema for your assignment 1 as a continuation work as well. So it's good to have some idea in mind first. Okay, but I don't want to assign 2 things at the same time. Okay. What does it mean by RDF schema? Actually, it's very similar to what we learned in maybe database. You have database schema. So the schema is a structure, right? The definition of the structure of the data you want to model. The same for RDF schema as well. You want to represent and describe things using RDF model. You can define any resource as your URI. You can define the predicate of your own. You can define the object as the value of the predicate and so on too, right? But once you keep describing, modeling similar objects, you may want to kind of make a standard vocabulary or standard structure, standard terms to define and describe the same thing. That is, we will do it through RDF schema. For example, what can be done when we talk about, one moment, need to, okay. What we have seen so far, the only two kind of two vocabulary I mentioned so far, right? Actually are SOAP and Dublin Core. They are standard. Okay. Actually, we have RDF schema for them. So this is the purpose. Whenever you want to describe objects, okay, in some application domain, and you want to make it a standard way, that is, you may consider the very first thing, of course, you need to think of what you want to describe, how you want to describe. That is why I gave you assignment number 1. Don't need to worry about the schema, but if you have to describe an art, a piece of art work, what aspect you want to describe, right? Who painted? When was it painted? The dimension of it, the type of it, the description or what, right? So think about the dimension, the things you want to describe them. And after that, try to explain them, describe them. And later on, we may define the schema. We will consider and design the proper schema later. Okay. So this is the thing. Info, as we already see, and I think it is good as well. If later on some of you may explore a little bit, what are these existing schema available? What is their info? What is there in Dublin Core? Okay. Maybe it's good to look at it a little bit because I don't want to. Okay. Okay. Okay, so here it is, the Dublin core. I will describe only the core part. One moment. Okay. The properties, there are 15 standards, but there are extended version as well. But the core part of Dublin core has 15 properties. Properties or predicates are kind of the same thing, the thing that you want to describe certain resource, right? In Dublin core, it has defined a standard vocabulary for 15 elements, alphabetically starting from contributor, then coverage, then creator. So as I mentioned, if you want to, let's look at a library resource, a book, an information resource, I should say. If you want to describe a book, for example, these are 15 standard elements that most people think about, such as who are the creator of this resource, what date of the resource, what is the description of the resource, the format of the resource, the identifier, the language, the publisher, relation, right, source, subject. Subject means keyword. Title, and it's also described, right, that a name given to the resource, that is the title, not a title of a person, as I already mentioned. So every property, a predicate, has already given a well-defined meaning, how to use them. So this is a kind of schema, a type of the resource, and so on. So these are 15 elements. Okay, starting from contributor as well. Who are contributor of the resource? Not only the creator. Sometimes you have editor, those who make English proofreading, not only the writer of the work or the book, right? But even those who make illustrator, drawing some photo image associated with the book, those who do the proofreading, those who do this and that, they are considered as contributor. So this has also explanation of what does it mean, right? An entity responsible for making contribution and so on. So what I'm saying here is that once we know that there are, where is it? Okay, there are existing vocabulary schema for describing the same thing. I mean, if you have intention to design RDF model for describing something, at the end, you may want to define them as a schema so that it becomes a standard that you in the organization and also people outside your organization may adopt and use them. Okay, and I already discussed two examples, FOF and Dublin core. Dublin core for information resources mostly. FOF, okay, let's look at FOF. It's I should go to this one. Okay. It stands for, as I mentioned, friend of a friend. And then fourth vocab. So, okay, let's look at maybe introduction. Okay, the initial focus of FOV is for the description of people. Okay, the center object for FOV is to describe people, a person, resource. So most of the things that are defined there will be about person, but of course there are some other related things when it expands, but initial idea was to focus on how to describe a person, because everywhere you want to describe a person for sure, right? Person in university, person in company, person in school, person in project, and so and so. Okay, but there are also related entities to persons, such as organization, project group, and so on. So that's why it has been expanded beyond person to cover some important related entities that normally people will need that. So did I click on something? Anyway, this is an example, and I think you already familiar with it. This syntax, I mean, this is to say that there is a fourth person, okay, with the name. How can I keep clicking on this? That's strange. Okay. There's a person with the name. So this is the vocab for the class person, saying that we have an object of the class person, saying that we have a property name, mbox, okay, homepage, image, and actually there are very many more, but this is just the first example. I will not go into the detail, but just to give you an idea that when we want to describe the same thing many times, it's better to define schema. But for an ad hoc, you don't need to worry about schema for ad hoc one, okay? Draw RDF graph, that is fine. Okay, so in RDF schema, back to it, we are allowed to define type. Actually, type will be better understood by means of class. So you can define classes so that you can say your resource belong to what class, to which class. This resource is a person. This resource is a book. This resource is a car, is a shopping bag, is what, okay? And with RDF schema, we use class or same thing, category, or sometimes called concept. They are the same, they have similar definition. Sometimes it's a type. Okay. Okay, so that means you can have class and you can also have subclasses, and you can have even further subclass and so on. Everything in RDF model is described through the same graph principle, that is subject, predicate, object. Even you're defining a class, it's still subject, predicate, object. You are saying that this person is a class, okay? And also you can have an instance, okay, which is an object. RDF vocabulary description language, actually, that is kind of formal name. It's just that the RDF schema language, a language that allows you to define schema. But the full formal name is that it is a language to define or to describe RDF vocab. because you're creating a vocabulary to describe something, such as folk vocabulary, Dublin Core vocabulary. These are vocabulary. Okay, so within the vocabulary, what do we need? We need a few things. We need ability to define classes. Okay, that is what you will do. We need ability of the vocabulary language to define relationship. Actually, relationships mean property, or actually in the RDF model, we want to define predicate. Okay. So we will use RDF schema language to do this. Two main things, but there are more of the capability, not only class and property, there are more, but we will focus on this thing first. Okay, if we talk about students, you see here that, as I said, everything in RDF schema actually follow the concept of RDF model. You want to define class? You write RDF triple, saying that student has type class, subject, predicate, object. Every model in RDF schema still follow RDF model of subject, predicate, object. And if you want to model subclass or make class hierarchy, we are saying that RDF student has the predicate subclass of refer to existing class person. Okay, this is again the same language for everything. If we want to define a new property, we can say that there is a property we call a property of predicate. Has name is of type property. We can also define property hierarchy, saying that has mother is a subproperty of has parent. Okay, this is just to give an idea of what can be done in the RDF schema definition. We can also define domain and range. That means this property apply to only which classes. For example, has name only apply to person. Our has name property belongs to the class person. Nothing else can have name. We only want person to have name. Nothing else we allow to have name in our vocabulary. Okay. So we use the triple has name, RDFS domain, person. The same we can define range to say to restrict valid values or range of the property. So the range of the has name property here in this example must be string data type. Okay, what else that we can do? Okay, so what you have seen in this example is that there are vocabulary predicates already defined in RDF called RDF type. Also RDFS subclass of, also RDF subproperty of, also this domain, RDFS domain, RDFS range, as well as RDFS class and RDF property. You see two prefixes now, RDF and RDFS. There are two different namespaces that they refer to. Actually, these are common RDF vocabulary you may want to use both for RDFS and RDF alone. So refer to this namespace all the time. This is standard namespace that refer to RDF schema. Every time you want to create an RDF schema, you need to refer to this namespace. So it has what you use mostly would be class for sure. We often need to create new classes. We need to use things related to properties creation, right? Such as define domain, define range, define subproperty, define subclass of. And actually all these are kind of annotation as well. The C also is define comment and label. These are for annotating, describing your vocabulary. Okay. So what am I saying here is that let's summary. In RDF schema, we want to define vocab. And normally when you want to define a vocabulary, meaning that you want to define a set of terms for describing resources in your own domain of interest, right? Then you may need to define classes in your own vocabulary. You may need to define subclasses. And that means you are defining class hierarchy. Okay, because once you define class and this belongs to, this is a subclass of another, you are making class hierarchy. Later on, after you define the classes, you want to define property. What the object in those classes, right? That you want to describe. What properties that you want to describe those objects in the of your classes. So they are defined by properties. And with property, you can define property. Meaning that you can make also property hierarchy. Two. And what else? With the property and classes, you may want to define domain and range. Okay. You say that these properties are for person. These properties are for animal. These properties are for something else, right? You define the domain. And what are possible values of those properties, meaning that you are defining the range. Okay, so let's go back and see here. This is the same as what I already mentioned in this slide. We use all these RDF schema vocabulary to define all these things. That is, we make use of RDF schema class, RDF schema subclass of, RDF schema domain range, and subproperty, and so on. Okay, let's look at this example. We may want to describe two classes in this example. Let's think about an organization. I want to model employee in the organization, human resource domain. So in a company, we want to model the class employee. So I say that employee has RDF type class. Everything you want to define as a class, you say that new thing and it has the type RDF class. Then it will be a new class for you. Okay. The same thing in the same way, I want director to be another class. So I say director has type class. Okay. Here, director has type class. But director is also a subclass of employee. Then I model that director has the RDFS subclass of with the employee. Okay, that's it. And if you have this graph in mind, you should be the very first thing to make it easy, draw a graph. But if you draw it correctly, you should be able to serialize it into corresponding maybe RDF, XML, syntax, turtle syntax, whatever syntax you want. But the first thing to start with is the conceptual model must be correct. Okay, next. I make it more complicated in a way that now we have where is it? How can I move? Okay, in a way that there are many layers. First, this is the vocabulary layer, the RDF schema, definition language layer, but this is the RDFS layer, your RDF schema, the layer of our own vocab. Okay, this is the RDFS vocab, but this is our vocab. Okay, so the first thing is that we want, in this example I have, is for the university domain, person as a class, student as also a class, faculty also a class. But you can see, right, if we have person, student and faculty for sure must be subclasses of person, right? So here, person has type class. Student is subclass of person. Faculty is also another subclass of person. Okay, that's all for the class type. How about property? I want to define a property name because I want everyone to have a name. Okay. Here, name. Name is a property, as RDF type property. So when I am defining name to be a property, and name is a property of whom? Oh yes, every person must have a name. So I define the domain. Name has the domain person, meaning that those who can have property name must be person. A book cannot have a name. Okay, a pet cannot have a name. In my vocabulary, I only allow person to have a name. And it has the domain person. What is the range? The same. Range are just literal string literal. So I define range to be of the XML schema data type string. Okay. All right, this is my schema layer, my vocab, my university vocabulary, or I call it X vocab, example vocab. Then once you have the schema, you can use this schema to describe any resources in your application, domain of interest. Let's say we have an object, a person, a real person, an instance. John. Okay, John is my favorite example. So I define John as a resource, of course, right? I want to describe John. So this is the URI for John. Okay, this is John resource. So who is John? I want to tell that John is a student. John is an instance who is a student. So I say John has type student. Any resource, if you want to say that it is an object of some class, you use RDF type. Whenever something is a type of something, you RDF type to make the understanding, the semantic, the meaning easy to understand. RDF type can be understood as when you read is a. If you can, sometimes you will see, I see a lot of confusion later on when you do a model of your own. Every time substitute the concept meaning, the meaning with is a. If it still makes sense, it gives you some idea that it's kind of correct somehow, but verification of correctness may need another level too. But if what you model and you can say read as is a, then that's fine. Person is a class. Student is also actually is a class. Okay, I didn't make a messy link here. Faculty also is a class, meaning that student, person, faculty has type class. John is a student. Yes, John has type class. Okay. John in this example is a faculty. So John has RDF type faculty. Any one object can be an instance of more than one class. Don't worry. In RDF model, we allow this multiple class that the object belongs to. Because why not, right? John can be a faculty in a university. He may enroll as a student in some course. Why not? Okay, in our scenario, we allow. And here, name, property. Yeah, name is a property. So it is type property. All right, what's next? We want to say that the property name of John has the value John. So this is the RDF layer. Okay, this is the RDF layer for the resource description layer. We are describing resource John with a property name with the value John. Resource, subject, predicate, object kind of thing in the resource layer. So far, what we have learned from the beginning before the schema part is that we learn this layer. When you describe a car, a shopping bag, a flight, DG67767 or something, it's this layer, right? You're describing a car, a liquor, a bottle of liquor or whatever. But now I'm showing to you that that's the beginning. You can abstract to the level of schema. So you can reuse your vocabulary more and more for other resources. And other people can use your vocabulary too. Okay. And your assignment number 1 also in this layer only. Okay. Focus on this layer. But later on, as I said, I will for sure move you to this layer of schema or vocabulary definition. True. These are metadata property or actually annotation. When you create a schema, you need to have some kind of metadata or annotate your schema. Describe your schema. What is it for? Description of this property, description of this class for human understanding and usage. Because we want other people to use our schema, right? Then you need to properly describe them. Okay. In using this comment label, C also is defined by. Okay, we come back to this later on. But I think, okay, I will finish soon here. This is okay. We have mix here. This is the mix of things you want to describe and model. It's a mix of both RDF schema creation. You need to create RDF schema and you need to describe resource using your own RDF schema, but in the RDF resource description layer. So for example, we can see that animal here. In this example, we want to model that dog is an animal. Cat 1 is a cat. Cats are animals. Zoo hosts animal. Zoo 1 hosts cat 2. For example, this is the zoo domain. So we need to define, hey, what is a class? What is an object? Differentiate them because defining class are in the schema layer. Defining properties also in the schema layer. Defining objects are in the RDF layer, right? Resource description layer. So differentiate them a little bit. We have here, then in this example, animal as a class. Cat also must be a class. You see, it is a subclass of animal. So they both must be classes. Okay. Actually, there could be a dog as well. Okay. But then in terms of object layer, object, let's use this. Dog 1, this is object. It is a type of animal, it's an object. Cat 1 is also object. Cat 2 is also object. Zoo 1 also object. Okay. So make sure you can differentiate when you want to model classes and object. Hey, which one is object, which one is class? And actually host is a property here. Okay. Because it is used to describe a relationship or predicate, right? Subject, predicate, object is a property. We are saying that zoo has a predicate host in which it hosts cat 2. So this is a property for sure. And we are defining that this zoo host property has a domain which must be some kind of zoo class, and the range of hosts must be animal. Okay. And this is the turtle, but we will not talk about it yet. We will later. So this is just to introduce the idea first, but if you need some time to understand them, we still have time make sure you understand RDF model first, okay? Try to complete your RDF assignment 1. We will lift it up to this level of schema definition after you present your schema, your RDF assignment 1 on the coming Thursday. I give some feedback, comments, whatever that may be necessary for improvement. Then after that version, we will move on for developing a schema from your description. Okay. Okay. So I think that's actually this checkpoint is for some simple exercise to check your understanding of what we discussed now about RDF schema. You can try, but this is not in a rush. Okay. We can still have time to come back to this point. Okay. I skip this first. We will talk about and we will employ this later on. Okay. Questions so far? One thing to remind is that the RDF schema itself, the concept about class, subclass, hierarchy, and so on, actually, this is similar if you have already the background in terms of object-oriented modeling concept. The same thing. Class concept, subclass concept, properties of relationship, as well as object and instance. What are classes? Why class and objects are different? This is the same thing. Okay. If you have some confusion, maybe you may need to recap this, but we can still have some time to make your understanding clearer too. Okay, if there's no more issue, then thank you for today.